Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the James Beard Foundation, thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Magnuson, Manager of Industry Support. This is our third of 5 sessions for our Winter Wellness Series. From the mental to physical, this virtual series aims to combat the various forms of industry burnout and prioritize your well-being. Our host today is chef and herbalist Adrian Lipscombe, who is also a JBF Chef Bootcamp and Well alum. Adrian began her career in city planning, holding a master's in architecture, working with both Austin and San Antonio on community impact project planning. She is an advocate for farmers and ranchers, working to connect them with chefs. In 2016, Adrian opened Uptown Cafe, a safe haven and gathering place exploring her Southern upbringing, Midwest ingredients, and African American culinary history. She founded the 40 Acres Project, which seeks to preserve the legacy of Black agriculture and foodways by purchasing Black-owned land. Adrian is also a founding member of the Maloma Heritage Center, serves on the board of the Edna Lewis Foundation, as well as the Foodways Texas and Austin Travis County Food Policy Board. She is currently a PhD candidate in urban and regional planning at the University of Texas at Austin. Before I pass it over to Adrian, I'm going to quickly go over the format of the webinar. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded to JBF's Virtual Education Library. We will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions, but you may use the Q&A box as your questions arise throughout. If you're having any technical difficulties, please write it in the chat and we will do our best to assist you. Thank you so much. Adrian, I'll pass the floor over to you.
Hi, everyone. I am working on making sure that we don't have any technical difficulties, first of all. That is one of our largest things that we're having right now, and I'm going to switch the screen over real quick. I'm going to make this a little bit larger because this has been a whirlwind of technical difficulties today for me, which is usually not a big deal. Hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. I have to make this just a little bit bigger. Fortunately, you'll have to see the bottom of my table slide real quick. So herbalism and wellness has become a part of my life. Really, it has always been a part of my life. My great-grandmother was an herbalist, and a lot of teas and tonics you could find throughout her house in mason jars, really not knowing what they were as a little kid, and shaking them, and her telling me about some of the things that were in them and what she grew in her garden. And for me, it really became quintessential to learn more about my plant life on a local level of where I was located at, because of just the COVID playing a part, me really wanting to understand the plants and flowers and the flora that was in my surrounding area. So what I ended up doing was taking a couple courses in herbalism, in which it just really drove me into finding out more and diving more into the history and understanding within my culture, but also within the world of herbalism. And so some of the things that I kind of was perceiving herbalism is that I was going to be eating a lot of leaves and that I really didn't have a clear understanding of what exactly herbalism was. And on this front, herbalism has a lot to do with the practice of plant material, food or medicine, and for health promotion. And when you start diving into looking at the botany and the flowers and the herbs that have to do with it, it has a lot to do with what we already do as a chef in the kitchen. Some history. So I'm a real big history buff, or just wanting to know a lot about research of this. And so herbalism has been around for a very, very long time, to the point in which it really has put on record when things were starting to be written back into back 5,000 years ago. But there's evidence between murals and evidence of finding remnants of herbals being used over 60,000 years ago. And for me, it sent me on a hunt to try to discover more about what herbalism and how herbalism plays a role in our food, and that we're just not using it for taste, but can we use it for our health? And as I dived more into it, you started to get more into the botany and trying to understand the plant's families. And as you can see, there is just a lot of history and drawings that go all the way back from Sudan, all the way through the Egyptian and then Greeks. And what we see today, especially with an herbalism in the Western, is that a lot of our knowledge and what we're being taught today is on a Western or even on colonialism teaching and thoughts. And the evolution of the medicinals really took off between the Renaissance all the way up to Reconstruction. And it was an evidence, as many know, that most doctors were male and white male. And it was all about who could do the discovery. And so there was a lot of discovery that was happening between plants and the flora, especially between the United States through Africa and Egypt, in which they started naming them, in which they were naming them Latin terms or Greek within the Greek realm. But I started questioning, what about the local flora, even in my area? So I was even being taught just the Latin terms, but I wasn't being taught the Native American terms on the land that the land in which I sat, and really started questioning where exactly in the origin of these herbs and where they came from. So some common uses of herbs, and I'll keep it really in general, is that people know herbal tea. Some of y'all even probably carry it at your restaurants. And then you see where plant medicine plays a real play in it. Like I told you, the chewing of the leaves can lead to talking about poultice. You probably know salves and cream. It's in the beauty industry right now. So there's a lot of herbal going on right now, and natural hand soaps, natural lotions, things of that nature. And then we have tinctures and tonics, in which you start seeing a lot of that in the bar. So a lot of words that I was discovering while I was doing my training was that I started seeing a lot of words that I see referenced in the bar area, where you start to see bitters and tinctures, syrups, and a lot of these bases are based off of herbalism. I wanted to talk about some that we see in our everyday life right now. Everybody knows oregano and uses oregano, but a lot of people don't understand what oregano on a broader term is used for in health. And within health, as you can see, it is used as an antifungal. It can be used for colds and upper respiratory systems, especially as right now we're hitting the winter to spring. So we're hitting a lot of what we call within the wet season. So a lot of the congestion area, where we're getting a lot of coughs, and we're seeing a lot of flu coming through. And some of these things, or some of these herbs, are really used as a dry out, or to dry you out from this, and trying to remove that moisture within your lungs and within your chest. And one of my favorite ones is oats. And usually in oats, we usually are talking about the oats of the top part of the oats. And I'll show you some pictures in a few minutes of that. In which at oats, I love to use, especially after working the line all day and coming home and making a tea, because it is a nervine that really calms me. A lot of people go for chamomile, which is used as a sleepy tea or sleep time tea, I believe, or use it as a calming mechanism as well, because it has some nervine aspects to it. And so those things you may not even know, but those are herbal reasons and herbal things that are happening to your body. Thyme is another one. It is also used for that bacteria and respiratory infection, and that astringent that helps clear out that wetness in our chest. And right now we are probably experiencing a lot of that because of a change of our weather. As we are leading towards the spring and the spring equinox, we'll start drying out more. And when we start drying out more, we start looking for other herbs or working with other herbs that are in the season that really cause us to add a little moisture back into us. So you'll see a little bit of like dandelion root, you'll see okra, you'll look for marshmallow root. Those are all also viscous, which has that moisture that'll bring back into your system. And teas. So teas for me are kind of my number one. If I'm traveling around, I'll make teas to take with me. Or I will be looking for a tea. And right now, here are a couple recipes, and I'll make sure that you'll get these. But these recipes I like to use for relaxation. So this is a tea that I definitely carry around with me. And I will probably pull out of this and show y'all a little bit of my table. All right, I'm hoping y'all can see a little bit of my table here. Let me know if you cannot. So I just wanted to show you a couple of things that I have on my table right here. So this first one, this is, let me find my camera. So this one is the oats that I was talking about, and it's a top oat, and we call them the milky oat. So I'll bring it forward here. It's called the milky oat, and this is just the top of the oat, and this is usually pulled right in the season, either used fresh or used dried. And if fresh, if you squeeze it, it has a little bit of like, looks like milk. And so we call those like the oat tops, or we call them the milky oats. And so part of this recipe, and I'm going to try to do the relaxation tea. A lot of our recipes are based off of one part, or if we're doing very large recipes, we do weigh and scale and have to calculate. So it's a lot of things of what we do, especially within baking, on putting these recipes together. And so I've already did a couple measurements here, but I just wanted to share with you this relaxation tea where I have taken 1 part oats in here, and then chamomile. Chamomile, dried chamomile. This is going to be the buds of the flower of the chamomile. And these, let me see, make sure I got it right. So these are used in many of our recipes throughout being a chef, especially within desserts. But this is also used for teas, in which you can find a lot of general tea recipes. One of the largest questions I get is, where do I find a lot of these herbs in bulk? Usually I do try to go to herbalist shops, or I look online and work with certain herbalist websites, because true to form, it's not going to be industrial based made herbs that are going to be or have been set up to dry for a very long time. I usually work with a lot of herbalists to find who either tries to get as local as possible, which is just really huge for me, but also trying to find smaller packs and smaller quantities versus a large enough bulk. And right here is some lavender. This is going to be local for me, for local Texas lavender. And this is all, like, again, 1-to-1. And so lavender aids in insomnia and anxiety and stress. And I can go back to like chamomile. A lot of people know that just promotes deep sleep. And oats helps with a lot of exhaustion or sleepiness. And then one of my fun things to do right now, because we are pretty much in our citrus season here, and Texas will be in it till about April. So I have some pink lime lemons. And so I will add these individually within the mix of my tea, individually when I make each one. Some other choices that can be made, or I like to use, especially if I'm doing deep sleep, I like to also focus on my digestion as well. And some digestion things that I like to add is fennel. Fennel is very strong. It has a really wonderful taste to it. And in fact, it ends up being sweet or sweeter when you're making these. So either adding fennel or even adding a little bit of sage. And again, if you follow me on Instagram, sometimes you will see that I'm drying out certain herbs. And I usually save those herbs for more herbal, for teas and such, or even for cooking. These are allowing me to be more control of what's happening on the local level, especially if I'm using it as an herbalist to give someone, or to be able to use at home for my family. I like to be able to control as much as possible where it comes from. So you may see me at times drying things, and dehydrators, I promise you, are probably our best friends between dehydration or being able to use the sun. And so I like to add either, like, again, either in mint as well. Mint is a good one. Mint or fennel or sage. And through that, when I mix these up, and we use I like to use about a tablespoon per each cup of tea that I use, and I let it steep for 3 to 5 minutes. But as you know, the longer you let it steep, the stronger it's going to be. And it's recommended to have these teas for like 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, as a sleepy tea, that's a lot, and trying not to sleep all day. So I really try to focus and concentrate on drinking 1 to 2 cups before I'm getting ready to go to bed. And I promise you, it's probably some of the deepest sleep that I've ever had. Um, Another recipe that I really want to look at or talk about is a digestive tea, because that is one thing that for us as as chefs, I don't know if you're like me, like I'm always tasting on the line, but I never eat. So when I get home, if I eat something, it's usually something not good, but also may have some digestion problems. So there's some things that really focus on digestion, and that we all have in our cabinets or even in the restaurant, like fenugreek and coriander and fennel and ginger. Those are some of those things that really work on reducing ingestion pain, gas relief, quicker digestion. Everybody, you probably know ginger is a really good one to use, but fenugreek helps improve digestion, and then coriander also helps with that, and it also helps relieve constipation. And again, like I said, the longer you steep these teas, the stronger that these teas are going to be, and the more reaction that you will get out of some of these teas. Um, and then one, I can tell you, like, if you're feeling like you're gonna get sick, and you don't want to get sick, it is usually my go-to is going to be turmeric and a fresh orange and ginger. And it's usually about 2 inches of the knob of ginger, and then probably around two roots of the turmeric. And I will boil all of that together, the rind and all of the orange. I will cut it in quarters, squeeze it into water, about 2 cups of water, and then I will let it steep for about 15 minutes, and then I'll let it boil, excuse me, and then I'll let it steep for about 15 minutes, and then I will drink that. And it gives you such a fantastic boost of vitamin C. But also it really does help with that clearing of what's happening inside of the chest and what's happening in the sinuses. And usually if I drink that, believe it or not, it is one of those ones that I just know that it will help me with whatever I'm going to be coming on to if I'm getting sick. And sometimes it will alleviate my congestion pretty quickly. And I'm going to switch back over with my shared screen real quick. And so here again are a couple recipes for you to see, and I will send them over for everyone for y'all to have. And I just want to also just mention a little bit about books. Books are very, very, very important when it comes to a lot of our work. One of one of the ones that I think that are very substantial that you should have is books about different cultures within your local realm to really understand what was grown on your land and grown around you, because that is mainly what you're going to be dealing with when it comes to dealing with sinuses, when it's come to dealing with your cold, and with the local flora that's within your area. But here are some amazing books that you can definitely check out. And I also will send one. I did have another slide, and I'm going to bring this up real quick. I did have another slide that really was based off of fire cider. And you may have heard that term, but it is turning out to be really, really big. And I'm starting to see it in restaurants, which I was very surprised to see it. And that's probably another one that I would recommend for people to be able to look at and to be able to drink, and especially during this time or in this part of the season, because of that wet chest and the congestion that we're starting to get. And fire cider is not for the faint of heart, as it sounds. Like I said, fire. And I'm going to try to see if I can grab the book for y'all, because I have a lot of books to share with you all. Give me one moment. Okay. This book right here, called Fire Cider, is a very important book. This book, if you ever had fire cider before, fire cider is a very strong, it's a very strong book, shot, and it's made with apple cider vinegar, and it's also made with garlic. Those are some of the bases of it. It doesn't sound delicious, I promise you that. And you also will probably find like horseradish as well. This has a very interesting story. Fire cider was developed by Rosemary Gladstar when looking at immunity and boosting the immunity and clearing the system. And what happened is that somebody trademarked fire cider and started making fire cider as a branded drink that you could buy. And within doing that, they decided to sue the herbalists that were teaching others to make fire cider and using the language fire cider, in which there ended up being a court case for about 5 years against herbalists for the term fire cider against this name brand company that was trying to develop the drink as a drink or shots as fire cider. Needless to say, the herbalists won. They won the case, in which now that fire cider is not a branded term, but it's starting to be a very popular drink as a digestive, as an immune booster, and also it's just one of those drinks that will literally clear your system. And for me, and people are using it as a hangover drink. For me, this book has some amazing recipes that play with a little bit of flavor, just like we do when it comes to cooking. And really, needless to say, like I said, this is by Rosemary Gladstar. And my teacher or mentor was one of the herbalists that were sued as part of Rosemary's group with the development, because she was one of Rosemary's teachers. Again, although some things that I find really necessary when it comes to learning about your food and your area is learning about the folk of your medicines in your area. And I will bring up my screen share, because I think you will like to see some of the names of these books. But I will definitely recommend is Richo Shack's book, Plant Medicine. It is a basic book, but it does give some amazing information regarding different plants and their plant usage, but also how to infuse and create different oils, to create different teas. It has an amazing dialect and also glossary of terms, which will give you majority of just the Latin terms, but it also give you the family, what it's from. And when you start reading about the different plants and the different families, you'll be quite amazed when you discover certain flora that are part of the marshmallow family, like okra, or you're discovering part of the yam family or part of the mint family. And then you'll start looking at the botany itself and the discovery of how you can identify these plants when you're walking. As like for me, like bergamot was big for me to know it's part of the mint family, and understanding the complexity of flavor and taste and what you can do. So that as a chef ended up me making comparisons of how I can blend certain herbs with other herbs from different families or from the same family to create something amazing. Um, Another book that I find really good is the Native American Herbalist Bible. There's some amazing books out here that really talks more about into the details of where these plants were, the source of these plants were found. And I mean, you can go down a real deep hole looking at certain books um, that are pretty amazing. The Holistic Herbal book is another one, and some of these are just my night reads that I get to look at that really just talks about and they're old, they'll talk about the chemistry if you're interested, but also the making of. And I also recommend, checking out your local herbalism schools if they have them. A lot of them will have a free course or free courses online for you to take a look at that may dive into maybe a little bit of a 101. But for me, using this as a chef allows me to balance my flavors more, but also inspire me to go deeper into looking into flavors. So when I'm developing as an herbalist a certain type of drink or food or soup, I may look for something for that may calm people. So you're starting to push and look at how a person is set. And as you decide to go and to look more into herbalism, or you want to get into herbalism and you want to try different tinctures and bitters and such, I do recommend talking to an herbalist or talking to your doctor to make sure that if you are taking something that it doesn't counteract with what you're taking, because there is a lot of medicine that can counteract with herbs, and especially a lot of medicine does have some herbs in it. So that's something to really be wary about. And my number one question I usually get is when someone's asking me about a certain herb or should they take an herb, and I'm going to say it depends on a person, and it depends on a little bit of your history to figure out what exactly we're looking to do. And again, it comes out again with like measurements and weights, and it has a lot to do, like I said, in very familiar ways to deal with baking. And for me, it just became a very easy thing to do. So you'll start seeing, especially in the spring is one of the herbalist's favorite time of year because of a lot of the flowers and the fauna and things that are coming and the flora that is coming up, that we will start saving and drying and keeping forward to take stock for next winter, just in case we need them. But yeah, I think I think that was a lot of information to share, and and I know I'm coming up pretty quickly on probably time, and just want to see if you have any questions. All right. Okay. I'm just seeing if anybody has any questions. Oh no, we had a little bit of difficulty. Oh, there we go. We got a Q&A. Yeah, I can speak on sustainable harvesting. I think what's interesting is we had a huge push, especially between 2020 and now, about foraging. And, a lot of people do follow the Black Forager, which I am one and a huge fan, about harvesting. For me, when I go and I harvest, or if we're looking as a forager to harvest, I always look around more than just the area of interest. For me, the thing is that I don't want to take all from one area. And if I look further than what the main point of that I'm looking for, if I see more, I will take a little bit from one area and another from another area. If I don't see a lot of that certain herb, I will leave it. And it's most likely that it's just probably on its way on coming up, or two, it has been harvested before, or three, it's just that's what it is, and it's not a lot. So when you're going out and doing harvesting, or like again foraging, it is worth taking really the time to look around, because I really want this to come back next season, and I want to be able for it to be able to seed, and I want it to be able to become more. And again, I use the same terminology when it comes to my own plants here at the house, such as mint grows like crazy, but I also do grow certain plants that are kind of unique that you don't really see too much as a house plant or as a plant that I have potted. So like I have cardamom here, I have cinnamon here, I have pepper plants. So there's just peppercorn plants. There's just certain plants that I want to make sure with the sustainable harvesting that I'm able to save seeds, or I'm able to leave to be able to flower. Another question, do you use tea balls or just steep the loose herbs? I do use tea balls as well. And that's something we didn't really get to talk too much about when it comes to teas. Again, being taught Western medicine and then also looking at Eastern medicine as well. Tea balls are very, very much in our world, and I use them to cause as a press and to press them together, and which I have created one, and I think I have one over there, a tea ball, in which we make little presses, and we're able to use and have an abundance of them. So yes, I do use tea balls or our little presses. Is there an app that you suggest to assist to identifying while foraging and learning to ID? I will send it to you, because I'm also using my phone as the table to do the identifier. I will send you one that I like to use, but I also buy very much books within my area. In fact, I'm such a book person. But I have like foraging in Texas, because that's where I'm located at, and it has this beautiful identification of and also in color. So identification of different plants and flora. I like my herbalist school here does foraging walks too that people can join to learn about different plants. But yes, I can send you one, but also not all of them are correct, right? Because it's an app. So some don't identify, but I will send you one that I find really interesting. So yes, so mushrooms is like a whole nother is a whole nother PowerPoint when it comes to using of mushrooms. And in fact, in my kitchen, in my banquet, which is not dishes, it's mainly herbs, different types of mushrooms are used for different types of things. And in fact, I have a couple books, and I'll also put that on the list too, of different types of mushrooms that are being used for teas and for steeping and making powder, even for tinctures. Reishi is one of the big ones everybody's looking at. Lion's mane is another one. I see lion's mane in the health world than I see as just being used, let's say the health and fitness world, than using just as a health. But yes, Mushrooms are another part of our world. And I was in Wisconsin, so mushrooms were everywhere. So that was like a very large conversation when it came to talking about how do you bring them into your world as an herbalist. Um, yeah, some of the books, ironically, some of the books are that I do recommend, and I will send that list out again. And Holistic Herbal, like by David Hoffman, is a very good book for a basic 101. And again, Making Plant Medicine is another good book. I, as a chef, I don't have a lot of time, but I keep finding time with the books. But this will show you as an example, like if you have goldenrod, it tells you what part to use, the tincture of fresh herb or a tincture to a dry herb, what you can use it if it as a water extract, which is making a cold infusion or a tea, practical uses, what it's used for, dosage. This was probably one of my Bibles that I really got to pull forward with and have a conversation and using with. And also stopping by and looking at some herbalist shops that are near you and having a conversation with them. Some herbalists really focus on plant medicine, some really focus on the health side, and some focus on the apothecary and Ayurvedic. So there's just different aspects to using with herbalism. But as a chef, for me, it was a huge deep dive to understand that a lot of language that we use in the kitchen is being used on the herbalist side as well, and also on the bar side as well. And most of what we are using are coming from those areas. And when you start looking, like diving into that history and looking at what was happening in the Greek and the Renaissance and such, you will start seeing how some of these herbs have moved into our kitchen. All right, was that it? Oh, yes. I think that was my last question, unless anybody has any more. If you're interested in having one-on-one conversations with me, you can please do reach out. You can find me on Instagram as ADIE_eats, or you can reach me via email. Very easy. It's just Adrian@adrianlipscombe.com. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Anna.
I know we do have some more time, so I didn't know
Yeah.
if you wanted to speak to, we did like a stretching workshop for our first series. Is there anything more you can speak to for, say, like joint pain or physical pain?
Yeah,
Folks work.
so especially joint pain, right? And that's like one we all have, especially in our hips and stuff. And for me, I find a lot of what I use is more of the viscous plants. And what I mean by that is the slime plant, right? So I'm talking about the okra plant, and okra, we're looking to take that viscous out. So we will decoct that, and that's all we want. We don't want the plant, we want the viscous part. Also, marshmallow root is another one, and that's the one we're going to decoct again, in which we're going to slowly let it seep out into the water. It's not a boil opportunity. This is like this cold infusion, and it is going to be very viscous. And that is like slippery. So we're looking for like the slippery plants that'll help with the joint. Usually what we see is whatever that reaction of that plant is going to do will let us know if it's on the hot or cold side. And as that viscous that's the one that's going to help with those joints, and it's going to help with those aches. One that everybody probably knows is when we have burns, or if we have burns, is mainly aloe, right? Everybody's like, oh, we'll put some aloe on it. And it's just as easy as just buying or chopping off a piece of aloe if you have one, and being able to take that viscous part as well. And viscous, and again, aloe is another one that helps with the joint pain as well. For me, It really does depend that it's more of a precautionary versus trying to do an actionary of what's happening. If you got it, it takes longer. So it's going to take more time and effort. These are not going to be overnight fixes. This is not going to be a pill that's just going to make you superhero tomorrow. These are are concoctions or doses that over time that's going to help you in these certain situations. And so again, like the certain types of plants that have occurred in like for your teas, again, is like you have to drink a lot of this. This is not something, again, that's not superly potent on the first time around, and it's just gonna be amazing. This is things that are gonna be that you have to take in portions and increments of time for it to work. Another one that's really good right now is elderberry. And you probably heard it, and some people up in the Midwest and North probably have it in their yard. And my first first introduction to elderberry was from my mother-in-law, which really she introduced elderberry and echinacea to me. And literally she said echinacea can fix anything. And this is when I was like 17, 18. So echinacea is another one of those plants that you are going to help take, again, a lot to do with that wetness in the clearing of. And then when you see it in the spring, these are going to be helping you clear yourself in the springtime. And these plants have different species. And that's another thing that with, even though they're within the same family, the same mint family, they can all react differently. As an example, peppermint and mint, they all can act in different ways. So you definitely have to pay attention to what type of variety you have. That's really big. A lot of people are asking me for questions on, how do you give this to a child? Or I don't like the way that it tastes, especially when it comes to to tinctures, a tincture. And then we have a lot of people that don't drink alcohol, and our tinctures are alcohol based. It is like 100% proof. So we're talking that Everclear. You do have the option of creating a glycerin or glyceride from a vegetable glycerin. Usually that's what we give kids because it doesn't have that strong alcohol burn or taste to it. So being able to make a certain vegetable glycerin, and you can find it at the grocery store. It'll say it'll taste better. It'll even say that it's glycerin. It'll have a little bit of a sweeter taste to it. So if you are concerned about flavor or not liking the way things go down, you can find that you can make a glycerin out of it, which does take a little bit longer to make versus making a tincture. And on average, tinctures will take you 2 to 3 weeks to make. Again, it's not overnight, so that's why you see more of the popularity of creating and making teas and making and tinctures, as you can see in the little Doppler bottles. Those Doppler bottles, and I was trying to see if I have one. Let's see if I got one real quick for you. I have a certain type, like different type of Doppler bottle, but these Doppler bottles are by measurement. So a lot of our measuring comes off of, again, using milliliters, and it's a lot of terms that we know as a chef to how to use that, and you can change like impactful in taste and flavors. So a lot of things that you see, especially if you come to my house and we're talking herbalism, you're going to see a lot of familiar flora that you're recognizing between hibiscus and mace and bergamot and, like I said, fenugreek, basil. All of these things can be used in herbalism, and they were used in herbalism in a certain way. And it's just taking this and putting it in the kitchen. Now, if we focus on using those tinctures and using that vegetable glycerin bases in our kitchen, that's what I find unique. And how do we bring that together? to talk about how do I make a calming dish as an appetizer? How do I excite you as we move forward into other dishes? And how do I calm you back down on your way out the door? So those are some very exciting things that I have been exploring when it comes to my food, but also, you know, how do we take care of our heart health and how do we move this, that these two worlds are really together and that we move forward and having more explanation to what our ingredients in our botany and what we're using um, is, because I think we really need to explore that, and especially for our own health, because we are some as women, we're the last set to really that really gets taken care of, and our self-care comes first. So again, with these teas that I gave you, those are things that you can do quickly, or you can have or make in bulk in your house that you can have to start your day or to end your day. Consistency is the key. It just depends on what we're looking for as the remedy. So the question is there a suggestion of frequency of these variations of remedies? Is consistency the key? It depends. Like, so if we're working on that digestive, yes, consistency is very much the key. That sleepy time, those calming nervine, like drinking those nervines during the day, maybe cutting out the chamomile, but sleep, you know, the things that are going to help you stay calm, those are going to be a measurement of working one-on-one with you to say having this 1 or 2 or 3 times a day will help you to stay calm. And it does, like I said, it takes consistency and over a longer period of time. It's not again going to be a fix that happens overnight. That's a good question. Any more?
I think I didn't see any other questions in there. So I just wanted to, as our time run down, I know this was a lot of wonderful information. So I like to just kind of walk away from these sessions if there's maybe top 2 or 3 kind of summarized takeaways for folks as we kind of digest everything that you have, Adrian.
Oh yeah. So some takeaways is one is really focus on yourself, right? Understanding your body is huge. And knowing that there's something not right, if it's between anxiety, lack of sleep, or it's again digestive. These are 3 that have mainly come up for me, but has come up from other chefs that I've worked with. Um, is really understanding that part of you and taking the time out for yourself as you're discovering these different herbs and discovering these different tonics that could help and assist you, and also be patient, and really look at the research of it all. And I know I say look at this research and it's like, do you have time? But also reach out and have a conversation with me and other herbalists about your interest in bringing this into your lifestyle, because we all have habits. And again, this is something that has to be part of you as becoming part of a habit. So like not everybody's going to want to drink tea every day, but finding that portion of time to have a tea that really is focusing on you and focusing on being calm or focusing on getting more sleep. And it may lead you to want to discover more about different herbs that could help with, you know, anxiety, that could help with heart and circulation or joint pain. They all can lead into making a wonderful tea, but it all can lead into also making tinctures and bitters as well. All right.
Great. Thank you so much, Adrienne. Let's just bring back up great where you can find more. And I want to remind everyone that this recording will also be up on our virtual education library in the next day or so. That's linked in the chat, and also some of our other resources and their links are here. I think we're good to share the PowerPoint and the resources that Adrian went through earlier in the webinar. So you'll be receiving a follow-up email, and even to those who missed it today, with those resources. And we will be back next week, the same time, 1 p.m., with Southern Smoke Foundation to go over mental health. And it'll also be 1 to 2 p.m. next week. So thank you so much again, Adrian, and for everyone who's joined us today. And we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.